Hi friends, welcome back. This is Alexis Percival on the Vinquisition with part 3 of our talk on orange wine or skin contact whites or amber wines, however you want to call them. And I'm just going to dive right in. I'm just going to keep talking about anything and everything that I find interesting about orange wine or that I get asked about in the course of, teaching and talking to customers and guests. So I personally have a love of orange wines that are made with aromatic grapes. When I say aromatic grapes, I mean the not neutral grapes, the ones that have a ton of personality and tend to be very polarizing. Grapes like Gewürztraminer, for example. And I think that that's interesting because these are grapes that normally I would have to drink at a certain time or place or in the right circumstances. They're not necessarily grapes that I want to drink on a day-to-day basis. So I find it interesting that I tend to prefer them made in a skin contact, unfiltered style. And I have a suspicion that the reason is when those types of grapes are made conventionally, they have a lot of their character stripped away from them through heavy filtration and often heavy-handed sulfuring. And I'm not against either of those things, but when it's really heavy-handed, the wines become very monochromatic in flavor, I guess, or sort of monotone. They just hit this one floral note. But when they're made with an orange wine style, it's like those characters are dialed up to 11. Right, and we have all the earthy notes too. So it's not just floral; you're getting everything that the grape has to offer, and that brings those really strong flavors into balance for me. So you have these sort of base notes, mid notes, and then those high tones. So if it's something like Sauvignon Blanc, for example, it's like Sauvignon Blanc dialed up to 11, and so I think that's pretty cool. And contrarily wise, more neutral grapes like Chardonnay, I tend to not love or be as interested in when they're made in a skin contact style because those grapes are just more neutral. And so they don't have as much inherent interest in them when they're not filtered. So that's just my 2 cents. So I'd give them a try. So grapes, especially that you are like, when you've had them before, when they've made conventionally, give them a try with some skin contact. You might be surprised. Another aspect, I talked about color and flavor and the length of skin contact during the process of making the wine and what happens there. So does the longer skin contact always mean a darker color? And the answer is yes and no. So to a point. Now, if you're in the Republic of Georgia, a wine that is actually on its skins for 0 to 3 months, and this is, of course, depending on the grape that you're starting with, can often be darker, amber-colored, than one that is approaching the 6-month mark. And the reason for that is that the heavy particulates that offer the pigment to the wine are going to precipitate out of the liquid and sink to the bottom. So the wine will self-clarify and will not, in fact, be as orange as one that is younger with extended skin contact. So I just think that's really cool that you kind of have to know what was actually happening in the qvevri or the fermentation vessel to get a sense of how old it is. Now, along those same lines, talk about the other thing that is giving color to our orange wine is what is the grape that we're starting with in the first place? Now, there are grapes that have a pink skin. So we're not white grapes and they're not obviously red grapes. They're ones that sit in between. And those are usually the ones called with a gris or a grigio, meaning gray, because they're not blanc, they're not white, right? And they're not noir, they're not black, they're in between. And when you give those grapes extended skin contact, you're pulling that pigment out. So Pinot Grigio is an excellent example of this. When we think about Pinot Grigio, beyond being bulk box wine, it's actually a fascinating grape. You give it a week of skin contact and you will end up with a neon pink, tannic, and floral beautiful wine. In Italy, they call these Ramato. So orange wine is not a new thing. Yes, it's an ancient thing, but it's got a more recent history too. It's not just this fad. It had its place for some time. And I just think that's so neat that here's like Pinot Grigio, for example, legally on the bottle it's going to be labeled as a white grape, white wine. In technique, it's going to be an orange wine or a skin contact wine. And in the glass, it's going to look like a rosé or a light red. And I think that is such a neat thing. In fact, the name Ramato at its base is the root for the word copper in Italian, because they have this sort of dark strawberry, coppery color to them. And speaking of Gewürztraminer, Gewürztraminer also is one of those grapes. And so when it has skin contact, it's often going to give this this pink color in the glass. They're very beautiful, and I just love that they don't fit in these categories that we've assigned to them while trying to put things in boxes. And it also occurred to me that I haven't mentioned, there is a documentary called Call It Amber that came out fairly recently, and that delves into the history and talks to a lot of people that work with orange wines. I have a little bit in it, but I think it's a great place to learn more about orange wine besides here. And if I am not covering things that you want me to talk about, certainly ask me. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep doing these videos as things occur to me. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time on The Vinquisition.